Opening doors for others. Sometimes a person will do something that changes the lives of others. It might be a brave or difficult thing to do. But after it is done, a problem that once kept people from doing things they wanted to do is gone. This can be called opening doors for others. Let's learn about 6 special people who opened doors for others, each in a different way. Frederick Douglass. Frederick Douglass was born almost 200 years ago. His mother was a slave, which is someone who is forced to work without pay. That made Frederick a slave too. Some slaves had to work on big farms called plantations. They were not allowed to leave, and they did not go to school. But unlike most slaves, Frederick Douglass learned to read and write. Around the age of 20, Frederick Douglass escaped from his owner. After that, he gave speeches and wrote books and newspaper articles about how terrible slavery was. Frederick Douglass went to see President Abraham Lincoln to talk about slavery, and the two men became friends. Partly because of Frederick Douglass's work, President Lincoln helped to make a law saying that slavery would never be allowed in the United States again. Helen Keller. Helen Keller was born more than 130 years ago. When she was just over 1.5 years old, Helen got very sick. The illness hurt her eyes and ears, and she was not able to see or hear after that. Because she couldn't hear people speak, she stopped learning how to talk. When Helen was 6, a teacher named Anne Sullivan came to Helen's home to help her learn to communicate with other people. When people communicate, they share information with each other. Anne Sullivan taught Helen how to make shapes with her hands that stood for words. This kind of communicating is called signing. Anne Sullivan also taught Helen how to feel raised bumps on a piece of paper. The bumps stood for letters. This special kind of writing is called Braille. Later, Helen learned to speak at a school for deaf people. As an adult, Helen Keller worked to help people who could not see or hear. She showed the world that you don't have to be able to see and hear to do great things. Rosa Parks. One day, more than 65 years ago, an African-American woman named Rosa Parks was taking the bus home from her job. At that time, there were laws in some states that were very unfair to African Americans. One of the laws said that black people were allowed to sit only in certain seats when riding a bus, usually in the back. And a black person had to move if a white person wanted his or her seat. When the bus driver told Rosa Parks to give her seat to a white person, she wouldn't do it. The police came and took her off the bus. Partly because of Rosa Parks's act of bravery, the Supreme Court decided that the law that separated black people from white people on buses was wrong. From then on, all people could sit wherever they wanted to on a bus. Later in her life, Rosa started a school to help young people become leaders. She worked hard so that all people would be treated fairly. She was even given a medal called the Presidential Medal of Freedom for her work. Martin Luther King Jr. Martin Luther King Jr. was born more than 80 years ago. When Martin was 6 years old, a white friend told Martin that they weren't allowed to play together anymore because Martin was black. Martin thought it was unfair that some people treated him differently because of the color of his skin. Martin Luther King Jr. became a church leader when he grew up. He led marches and gave speeches to let everyone know that African Americans were often not treated fairly. Because of his work, a law was passed that said all people must be treated fairly no matter what the color of their skin is. Martin Luther King Jr. was given the Nobel Peace Prize for causing changes that made people's lives better. Cesar Chavez and Dolores Huerta. Migrant farm workers are people who move from one farm to another to pick crops. Cesar Chavez and Dolores Huerta wanted migrant farm workers to be safe and healthy. The members of Cesar Chavez's family were migrant workers. Cesar joined them in the fields when he was 15 years old. The days were very long and difficult. Migrant workers had no fresh water to drink, no bathrooms to use, and they sometimes got sick from touching dangerous chemicals that had been sprayed on the crops. They also made very little money for their hard work. Dolores Huerta knew how difficult migrant workers' lives were because she taught their children. The boys and girls often didn't have shoes to wear or enough food to eat. Cesar Chavez and Dolores Huerta met in California. They worked together to improve life for migrant workers in many ways. Because of their efforts, farm owners began to treat their workers better. Both Cesar Chavez and Dolores Huerta were honored for their work with the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Each of these 6 people saw things that were unfair and worked hard to change them. What they did opened doors for others by improving their lives. Maybe someday you will open doors for others too.
Click on the next activity. Frederick Martin Luther King Jr., Dolores Huerta, they opened doors for others. Click on the next activity.
Amelia Earhart. Amelia Earhart was one of the world's most famous airplane pilots. During her life, she worked hard to do things that other pilots had not done before, and she succeeded. Amelia was born in Kansas in 1897. As a child, she loved adventure. She liked to climb trees, ride her bike, and collect insects. Once, she and her sister built a roller coaster out of some pieces of wood and a box. Amelia loved sliding down the tracks in the box because it made her feel as if she were flying. When Amelia was young, airplanes were a new invention. She was only 6 years old when the first airplane flight took place. When she was 23 years old, Amelia Earhart took her first plane ride. She was in the air for only 10 minutes, but she loved it. Afterward, she decided that she wanted to learn everything she could about flying. Amelia Earhart wanted to take flying lessons. They cost a lot of money, so she worked at 2 jobs to pay for them. The pilot who taught her to fly was a woman. After a while, Amelia Earhart bought her own plane. She called it the Canary because it was yellow like a kind of bird called a canary. At that time, there weren't many women pilots. Some people thought that women shouldn't even be pilots. Amelia Earhart was determined to prove them wrong. Not only was she a very good pilot, but she also did many things that no other man or woman had done before. Her sense of adventure kept pushing her to set new goals for herself. Back then, people did not usually travel long distances in planes because it was dangerous. In 1927, a man named Charles Lindbergh did something that people had thought was impossible. He flew a plane all the way across the Atlantic Ocean by himself. 5 years later, Amelia Earhart decided to do what Lindbergh had done. She knew it would be a difficult flight, but she was brave. She became the first woman to fly across the Atlantic Ocean alone. After that, Amelia Earhart became the first person to fly alone over the Pacific Ocean, taking off in Hawaii and landing in California. That made her the first person to fly alone over both the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. Because of her courage, hard work, and skill, Amelia Earhart did things that no one thought she could do. More than 100 years after her birth, she is still remembered for her amazing achievements.
Click on the next activity.
Famous people. Matching cards. Match the people with what they did.
Play.
Wrote a newspaper to show how slaves were treated unfairly. Good try. Very nice. Flew across the Atlantic Ocean alone. Good job. Helped migrant farm workers to have better lives. I know, awesome. Fought for equal rights for all, no matter their skin color. Great. Insisted on fair treatment by not giving up her seat on a bus. Great job. Showed that people can be leaders even if they can't see or hear. You got it. Very nice.
Click on the next activity. Read a poem about someone who helps others. Then draw a picture to go with it. Done. Click on the next activity. Work is a sight word that we all need to know. We see the word work wherever we go.
My mom and dad work hard each day, and I work hard too. At school, I study many things until my work is through. I do other work. I help with chores around my house. I set the table, dump the trash, and take care of my mouse.
Now you can read work when you see it in a book. Look for W-O-R-K wherever you look. Click on the next activity.
Hey there! I'm Bernie. I live here in the library and I love to read books. Doesn't everybody? Oh, I love to read all kinds of books. Some have stories that writers make up. Those are called fiction books. Like this one, The Golden Bird. That's one of my favorite fairy tales. It's about a tree that grew golden apples. Oh, I love apples! Almost as much as I love to read. Books that give true information about real people or events or places are called non-fiction. Here's a non-fiction book I just finished reading about Benjamin Franklin. Benjamin Franklin loved to read too. He actually loved books so much, he helped create the first public library. Thanks, Mr. Franklin. One of the things I love about reading is that it exercises my mind. Oh, and my body. Anyway, nonfiction books often have special parts that make it easier for readers like you and me to find the information we're looking for. Like this table of contents. You'll always find the table of contents at the beginning of the book. It lists the main parts of the book and the pages that those parts start on. If I wanted to know all about Ben Franklin's childhood, I'd go to page 4. Or if I wanted to read about how he helped to start the very first library, like this one, I'd turn to page 29. As much as I love to read, I love to look at pictures too. Sometimes in nonfiction books, there are words next to the pictures that tell you what you're looking at. Those are called labels. This one's labeled Ben Franklin's invention, the long arm. Franklin invented the long arm because he had trouble reaching books on the high shelves. Tell me about it. Some pictures have extra information underneath so the reader understands what's happening in the picture. That's called a caption. This one says, Benjamin Franklin, John Adams, and Thomas Jefferson talk about the Declaration of Independence in 1776. Some nonfiction books have tables or charts. They make it easy for readers to quickly see how things are related to each other. Ooh, here's a table called Ben Franklin's Inventions. At the top of the table are words that tell what kind of information is in the table. Those are called headings. Wow! Ben Franklin invented swim fins in 1717, when he was only 11 years old. Sometimes nonfiction books have words in them a reader doesn't understand. In the back of some nonfiction books, you can find a list of those words and short explanations of what they mean. It's called a glossary. It's sort of like a dictionary, but a glossary doesn't have nearly as many words. It only has words that are in the book. And it only gives meaning for those words that make sense for the way they are used in the book. Now I have to decide which book I want to read next. The great thing about living in a library is I have lots of choices. Maybe too many?
Click on the next activity.
Bernie's Book Mystery. I need your help. I've lost something very important in a book. Can you help me find it?
Play!
Choose the correct answers, then select the Done button. What book features do you see on these pages? Table of contents. Cover. Label. Excellent! On which page will you find information about Rosa Parks? Page 3, page 5, page 7. Terrific! It's not here. Let's try another book. What book features do you see on these pages? Glossary. Label. Graph. Well done. Who is the person in the picture? Steve Jobs, Ben Franklin, Bill Gates. Good job. It's not here. Let's try another book. What book features do you see on these pages? Table. Caption. Glossary. You got it! Which president was in office for 12 years? Thomas Edison, John F. Kennedy, Franklin D. Roosevelt. You got it! It's not here. Let's try another book. What book features do you see on these pages? Chart, glossary, caption. Awesome! What was Abraham Lincoln? He was an inventor. He was President of the United States. He built the Statue of Liberty. Terrific! Here it is! Thank you for helping me find my glasses. Fantastic!
Click on the next activity.